recording. Got your mic? Everything good? Sound check good?
Sound check.
All right. Here we go.
Hey guys, welcome to the inaugural episode of our new podcast we're calling Nitrate. I'm Erin and this is Micah.
Today we're talking about the movie Parasite.
Parasite is a 2019 South Korean black comedy by writer-director Bong Joon-ho. The film follows a young man from a poor household who begins to tutor a rich family's young daughter. Alongside his parents and sister, he slowly starts to infiltrate their personal lives.
So we had to drive like an hour to see this movie because it was showing in no theaters nearby, which I was really happy about because I saw that it got rated like best movie of the year, and looking further into it, I found it got rated one of the best films of the decade, and I was just like, I have to see this movie. So we talked about it. I couldn't even really remember, or I wasn't even really sure if it was a foreign film or what. It kind of looked like it might be, so I wasn't sure Aaron was going to like it. But yeah, we pulled up. It was this weird little theater that was basically, I guess like they play some of the normal films, but they also play a lot of like, famous classics and stuff. And it was just a weird, cool little theater over in Charleston. And when we pulled up, we went inside, and the guy directed us down this little hallway, and we went in there, and the theater was this tiny little theater, like pretty much the size of this living room.
Like a little black box.
Yeah, it was really cool. But what did you think about this movie going in?
I thought it was a cool experience. I thought it was fitting that it was kind of like a rainy day. Micah didn't really know anything about the movie going in, but he didn't warn me, so I had seen the trailers going in and kind of had a sense for what to expect, and I was gearing up to read the whole movie because it is all in Korean, so you're reading subtitles the whole time, which I'm convinced with a movie that has so much going on. You know how you see a movie that's really interesting and you're like, oh, I probably need to watch this twice? Because this one is subtitled, you could probably get away with watching it 3 or 4 times. Yeah, because you're reading, so, or just learn Korean, so one of the two.
Yeah, I feel bad. We should have invited my sister Caitlin, because I know she knows a lot of Korean.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was weird to watch in this movie because you feel like when you're watching it, you kind of realize that this main family that it follows is in a very poor situation. They're basically folding pizza boxes, and they're losing pay and they're losing money, and basically this guy, the son's friend, at one point invites him to have coffee or something, and they are talking, and this guy does English tutoring for this high school girl that's about to go into college, and he tells his friend, hey, I'm going away, and I would like you to tutor her because I don't want, frat guys all over or whatever. Am I saying this in too many words?
No, you're good.
No? Basically, so he tells the guy, I want you to tutor her. And so he says, okay, he does it. And then while he's living there, or while he's tutoring her there, they start to realize they can invite, how should I say this?
They're kind of con artists a little bit.
Yeah, the family is kind of a bunch of con artists. Like, the son goes in, he starts working for the family as an English tutor, and then he tells them, oh, I know this great, art therapist, and he tells him it's his sister, and his sister comes in where she has no credentials, and then as the sister's working there, she says, oh, my, I know this guy who's a great driver. And
they're really good at fabricating credentials. It was very much a Catch Me If You Can moment, which was a movie that I loved, and it made me think of that.
Yeah.
That they were forging everything, and it was like this kind of accepted way of doing things. This, like, maybe the dad of the poor family, that he had sort of instated this as part of the family culture, just having it be acceptable to basically forge things, to fake, to pretend. It was just from the get-go, there was no question of that being acceptable within their family culture. So that was interesting to me.
Yeah, it was really weird to watch how this family, with such desperation, decides they can just con their way into working for this other family, and they find ways to get the other workers fired, and it's very snakish, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah. So we both took notes because we wanted to remember the things that stood out to us about the movie. One thing that I thought was really interesting that I don't know if I should say in the beginning because it is really interesting. I'm going to start strong. This was not something I picked up on. This was actually something that I read on a YouTube comment of another movie review of Parasite, but I thought it was really interesting and I just had not considered it. But something that went on a lot in the movie was the poor family was a lot of times in the scenes set down and was looking up. So that was kind of symbolic of their place in the economic class. So their home was down to where, in the very beginning of the movie, they're down low in their sort of basement underground home, and they're looking up, and they're actually looking at this drunk guy who's peeing in the street, and they're talking about him, and looking back, it's like, okay, was that meant to be a commentary on, they were lesser than even this guy who was like, you could consider the low of the low, but in this social setup, they were lesser than him because of their economic status. And so they lived in the basement there. And then later in the movie, what ends up happening, obviously these are all spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, you should go watch the movie first. Should we wait
until we get to spoilers?
No, because it's almost too hard. I really think it needs to be like a conversation between us because that's what's going to be interesting to people. And we want it to be interesting to people. But
I'll put spoilers in the title.
Okay. So the part of the movie where it kind of, to me, one shift in the movie was when the old housekeeper shows up at the door in the rain and she's frantic and she wants to come in. She's like, I need to get something. She comes in and she reveals that in the basement there is this secret door into this sort of cellar. And so a lot of the parts with the poor family where they're kind of hiding what they're doing are them down in this basement. So again, it's the concept of them being lower and looking up, which again is symbolic of sort of this wealthy family being above everyone and the poor family being below, always looking up. And then the final scene where that was kind of represented was the part when the poor family is caught drinking and essentially having a party in the rich family's home when they've gone away on this camping trip. And the family returns home early because there's a rainstorm, and the poor family hides underneath the coffee table. And again, it's symbolic of the poor family is once again literally physically below, looking up. And then conversely with that, you've got the rich family who someone had commented on YouTube saying, well, why didn't the rich family notice the track of the hidden door? Because they don't look down, because they never look down, because they don't stoop that low. Same with why didn't the rich family notice the poor family hiding underneath the coffee table? Again, something that you would think would be obvious, not too hard to notice, but again, they're not looking down. They have their eyes set above. They're focused, particularly in that scene, they're focused on their own pleasure. They're focused on entertainment, on things that to poor people are considered so luxurious that they can't afford to focus on in life. Do you get what I'm talking about? That part when they're having sex?
Yeah.
So then the rich family is always looking up, whereas the poor family always looking down literally in the movie, and I just thought that was an interesting comment from someone, and you definitely see it in the movie, and I'm sure if we were to watch it again, we would notice it in even more places. Yeah.
I did think it was really weird at the part with the coffee table. I was like, how do they not notice them?
Yeah.
And that's an interesting way of putting it.
The idea that they're kind of like blinded by their wealth, blinded by their status. They're not going to look down because it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them feel vulnerable. So yeah, that was an interesting thing that I noticed. Do you have any thoughts on that, since you didn't notice it originally?
No, I haven't. I don't know. I've got nothing on it yet, but I'd have to think about it.
Yeah.
Earlier in the movie, the family gets this big rock that apparently symbolizes...
I didn't even think about that.
The family gets this big rock that apparently symbolizes, coming good fortune or coming wealth or something like that. I'm not really sure. And so basically, they put this rock up, and then all these things start to happen, and things start to really go their way, and everything's going great. And then there's this other part in the movie where the son talks about, he's always clutching the rock. And towards the end of the movie, you see him finally put the rock in the river after everything's kind of gone to crap. And you watch him forge a plan, which is something that you find out earlier in the movie. His dad says, I don't make any plans because that way I can never be disappointed. And I'm so bad at fleshing out thoughts. But
well, okay, what did you think that the rock represented? Because in the beginning, I was very interested in the rock because I was like, okay, this is a symbol. I need to pay attention to this. And at first I thought, oh, the rock represents wealth and status, because he was giving it to him kind of as this gift that he wouldn't normally be able to afford. His friend, who originally connects...
You need to come in the frame more. Way off to the side.
Sorry. The friend who originally connects the young guy in the poor family with the rich family, he was the one that gave this gift. And so, yeah, I was thinking, oh, this must represent wealth and status. And then as time went on, towards the end of the movie, it didn't seem... it's not consistent. Like, what about the part where the young guy gets hit in the head with the rock? Do you think that the symbol changes, or do you think that I was just off base with what it represented?
I do think it was interesting how at first it's supposed to represent fortune, and the son just clutches to the rock, and then when he finally puts the rock down, it's picked up by someone else and used against him, and that's kind of when he realizes, he's unconscious. That's kind of when he realizes this is just superstition, and this rock really has no power. And in his dad telling him, I don't make plans because plans can, fail me, he realizes there's not really any force to, hold on to. Things are just kind of crazy. And so he decides, I'm going to put this rock down, and I'm going to see if I can just take control of my own, destiny, and I'm going to buy that house, and I'm going to meet my dad coming out of the basement. And it's so weird to watch that because I was a little worried at first, because I was thinking, please tell me this movie is not doing the thing that so many movies do, where they give you a sequence that's a dream sequence or fake, and they just say, no, he just dreamt it, it's all fake, or they leave you guessing. I think that's so dumb. For me, I feel like I'm kind of at the point of seeing that so many times that if a movie is going to show me something that seems hard to believe, I'm just going to take it at its word, because I'm tired of, questioning whether or not it was all real, because that just feels like a waste of time. So honestly, I really love the way they ended the movie, where they were like, this is his plan, and then it cuts back to him at the beginning of his plan, which doesn't even necessarily have to say whether or not it's going to happen. All it tells you is this is what he wants to happen. It's basically just showing his description of his plan as he's talking about it. It's not showing a scene and then, duping you. It's just showing you what he's planning.
Which is also significant and relevant, just because, and this was something I put in my notes, was there's this part where the dad basically is just beaten down, and it's kind of at that point in the movie where there's sort of that switch where It was the night after things went horribly wrong at the house, and they're kind of recovering from that. It's the night after the big flood, and there's all these sort of things that show the poor family all the things that are so different about their lives. It's like there's this all of a sudden just very clear distinction between their lives, the lives they lead, and the lives that the rich people are leading, and how, no matter how much they are trying to fit in there and trying to kind of take that on as their own, it's not who they are. That part. After that, they wake up the next morning and they're in this, I don't know what you call it, some sort of shelter. And that you can tell that they're all just emotionally beaten down. And that's the part where the dad reveals to the son, I don't want to have a plan. I never want to have plans, because you have a plan and that's how you end up failing. That's how you get let down, because things can't go wrong if you never have a plan. And so that's why that part at the end where the son, this new generation, he's coming in and he's choosing to have a plan and he's going to overcome that. And I like the way you put it about the rock, about that being kind of a superstition. I would say that in my life, that's consistent with certain people that I've met where, this idea that you can't rise up, you can't grow, you can't get better. Sometimes people, I think, feel so shackled, and it's just by their own superstition, by things they've, put on themselves. And so, yeah, I thought that was one of the most probably notable messages in the movie, was the idea of don't not, just because you're afraid of failing, which actually in kind of like a cheesy way is cool for us, because I know that at least for me, just starting this podcast is something that I've always wanted to do, and have not done certain creative things like this, just because I thought that just being afraid of failure. That message resonated with me personally, the idea of kind of putting perfectionism aside, putting aside your fears about something, and choosing to set a goal, even though setting that goal is making you vulnerable to failure and to being let down and to having your expectations not met. So I think that anyone doing anything in life, anyone who achieves anything, you have to do that. And I thought that was a good message in the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how, they kind of talk about, there's a moment in the film where the mom is talking about how when you turn on the lights, all of the cockroaches scatter. And she kind of compares that to her husband. And when they're hiding out in this house at night, when the lights turn on, the husband and the kids are all going to have to scatter just like cockroaches. Mm-hmm. And you kind of notice how there's this like kind of there's this hint of disrespect for the dad, because he hasn't really gotten his family out of poverty. And it's not so much that they necessarily in a country where it's just easy to get out of poverty, but you kind of see through them talking about not making plans, how the dad's philosophy towards life doesn't really breed success. And the son decides, I'm going to change philosophy, or else I'm just going to be just like my dad. So the end of the movie is kind of you seeing the son grow up and, decide I can be even better than my dad, basically.
Yeah. Well, on those lines, I thought that was so interesting, because it's the part where the dad, basically, the mom says that thing about cockroaches, and the dad...
Keep going.
Are we good? And the dad pretends like he's about to hit her. And then instead of hitting her or reacting in anger, it was just a joke. He was just joking. And I thought that was really interesting, because not saying he should have hit her or anything, but I did think, wow, he's just making such a joke out of this. Like, it would have made sense if that had kind of hurt his ego. Any normal person, that probably would sting your ego a little bit, to be compared to a cockroach in the way you approach your life. And instead of, being maybe hurt at all, he just kind of, it seemed like maybe he sort of buried that a little bit and just made a joke of it. Like maybe that was a defense mechanism a little bit. And then as far as the cockroach thing, I think it's interesting that you brought that up when they scattered, when the people got home, because I also thought, and I put that in my notes too, that I thought they looked a little bit like cockroaches when they left the rich people's home. They left, and it was this incredible scene of where you're seeing the town they live in, And it's, you've got all the high points where the rich people live and all the literal low points where a lot of the poor people are in the slums. And it's flooding. There's a sewage flood. And that part where they're running down the stairs and they're all kind of scattered. I wonder if we'll be able to find a clip for this, but it's that part where, can you picture it? They're on the stairs and they're all staggered. They're not kind of running together. They're all staggered. And I thought, wow, that looks kind of like cockroaches running through streets or rats or something. And I think that was probably intentional, just the way that looked.
Yeah, that was a weird part, especially when you kind of consider, man, crap, I just lost it. I just had it in my mind. Yeah, when they get back to their house and it's all flooded from the sewage water, you kind of notice, you kind of realize, okay, these people are gonna stink. Like, there's no way these people could come back in the morning and work for them.
I had that thought too.
Yeah. Earlier in the movie, the rich dad basically talks to his wife while everyone's hiding under the coffee table. He talks to his wife about how his driver, the other dad, basically smells like smells like the subway, radishes, basically. Yeah, old radishes, I guess is what he said. Smells like the subway. And you kind of notice, like, it's kind of humorous because you see the dad kind of smell himself like, do I really smell like old radishes? And you can kind of notice a change there where he starts to kind of resent the other dad. There's a conversation also earlier in the film between both dads where the poor dad asks the rich dad. He kind of brings up the rich dad's love for his wife, and the rich dad just changes the subject. And then later in the movie, he is helping them plan this party towards the end of the film. He brings it up again to the rich dad that he loves his wife, and the rich dad once again says, "Look, I'm paying you money," and he won't even talk about it. And you kind of see how they view their family relationships differently. And I'm wondering if part of it is the poor dad just kind of looks at the rich dad and sees everything he has, sees how much his family respects him and loves him and cares about him and how great of a life he has, and he doesn't even appreciate it.
Interesting what you said about respect, because I didn't kind of, like, I noticed on the one side that the poor dad's family had such a lack of respect for him, but I really didn't pay too much attention to the sort of juxtaposition with the rich dad, where there were so many references to respecting him. Like the guy that was hiding in the basement would say, respect, respect, and he would light up the stairs as the rich dad walked up the stairs, and it was kind of this like glorious moment for the rich dad. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, that was definitely a thing that was going on. And then what was the other thing that he said?
Yeah, that guy kept talking, but he kept saying respect, and even when the dad said, "Who are you?" he goes, "Respect."
Yeah. I can't actually remember the other thing I was going to say, but I will say just a couple like side notes. I did not expect, so the first half of the movie was quite funny, which was something I really did not expect, but it was fun. It was a fun sort of element to have in there, especially when it took a dark turn towards the middle end. And then also I wanted to get your thought on the soundtrack. What did you think about the soundtrack?
I don't remember the soundtrack very well.
It was kind of crazy. Like, it was very dramatic. It felt very sort of highbrow to me, like not just classical, but like triumphant and kind of fancy. And I thought you would have something to say about the soundtrack.
No, I actually was not paying much attention to the soundtrack, which is kind of ashamed of myself a little bit.
Well, next time. This is definitely a repeat watch.
This is a repeat watch for sure.
Yeah. So the bad smell thing was definitely interesting, and I think it was just obvious, okay, so I remember now what I was going to say about the two dads. So there were a couple moments when the poor dad sort of, I think he crossed a line, which was something the rich dad kept talking about, was this idea of the help not crossing a line. And that was sort of my takeaway on it. I didn't necessarily read anything into it as far as like how much he actually loved or didn't love his wife. I just looked at it like he was crossing a line or getting right up to that line.
Yeah, he kept talking to his wife about, Mr. Park, my driver, always gets really close to crossing the line. He never quite crosses the line. But the smell crosses the line.
Yeah. But you read other things into it as well in terms of like...
Their conversations about love, I guess.
So do you think that Mr. Park loved his wife?
I'm not sure. I know that he said, if you want to call it that, when he asked him, do you love your wife? He says, if you want to call it that. And it's kind of funny, you see their relationship in the car. He talks about crossing the line, and that to me always read as the physical line between the driver's seat and the back seat. And there's the physical line of the car, where it's just kind of their business relationship together. And then there is to me, I feel like there's this symbolic line
or
that he feels like,
lane, literally.
Yeah, he's like staying in your lane, don't cross the line.
Keep your eyes
I'm
on the
paying
road.
you, don't ask me about my family. Don't ask me about, how I handle my personal things.
Mm-hmm.
You're my driver. I'm paying you extra so you can do this for me or whatever. But, that is strictly what our relationship is. And I don't want us getting closer than that, which you could go into all kinds of things about that. You could be talking more the political side of that, the classism there, or you could just be talking about, their similarities or differences as people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. So here's another one that's like, to me, a highlight that I did not notice on my own. Wow. I'm say again. Minnesota. Okay. So something that was really cool about the movie that I didn't notice on my own, but someone else noticed on the internet, was that...
Wait, you looked this movie up?
Yeah. I was trying to get some content.
What? I was gonna say I tried really hard not to look up this movie because I wanted to have my own opinions. And
no, I definitely have my own opinions, but I kind of was like, if I'm somebody else watching other people talk about a movie, I just want them to give me all the ideas that I didn't have on my own. I don't care if they were organically their ideas. Like I don't care.
That's what makes our video unique.
But it will be because these are still things that.
We'll have to do that for the next video. Make sure we don't read about the movie.
No. Okay.
Cheater.
All right. Okay, so hold on. Let me get my train of thought because I actually had something really interesting to say.
Okay.
You're going to get a drive-by purring on that mic. Okay, so when I was talking about the idea that the rich people kind of function in such luxury that they're able to, so much of their lives revolve around just sort of entertainment and their own pleasure. And I think you see that in the movie in different times. But one time that was really interesting, and I had this pointed out to me, that in the home, which was actually a set, trivia fact, was a set created just for this movie. The window that they look out on, that a lot of scenes are filmed through, is the ratio. What?
The window with the
giant window in the house where they look out and they see the lawn, they see the tent. That's where the lawn party happens at the end, where everything goes crazy. That window is the ratio of 21:9, which I guess is, it's as if you're looking through a screen. That's the ratio of a screen if you're watching a movie. So I thought that was really interesting because, again, it brings in that concept again of the wealthy people functioning in this space in life of everything is sort of for their entertainment. I thought that was interesting. What do you think of that?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I don't know what 21:9 would come out to. Ow, you're biting. Hey, you are biting me.
And then just another kind of fun trivia fact about this movie is that the part where the younger son of the poor family is teaching his dad how to act, basically how to con this family. Apparently that was a really hysterical moment for South Koreans. because the actor who played the dad was such a tenured actor, and the son was this newcomer on the scene. And so the way that the director described it for Americans was, imagine if Ansel Elgort is teaching acting to Al Pacino. And so it was just a really funny moment for them that we missed because we're not South Korean.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Isn't that funny?
That is funny.
Yeah. The movie was definitely a little bit more political than I had anticipated. So that was something that I noticed about it. I also thought, since I'm just saying some of my thoughts since we're in that zone of the podcast. I also thought that this was the kind of movie that makes you it makes you question the character's sense of morality, but it also makes you question your own, because you're having these sort of natural reactions to things going on in the movie, and you're thinking, oh, well, am I on base with this? Like, is this wrong? Is this right? It's kind of like the ethical idea of, the guy who steals bread to feed his family. I think that this particular movie brings that sort of concept to life a little bit, and throughout the whole movie you're kind of thinking in those terms a little bit, and I think the moments where I felt the most sort of distant from the main family that you're following, the poor family, were the moments when I felt like they were kind of abusing. They were, they weren't just taking something that they needed, which is funny that, I can somehow make peace with this idea that, okay, well, if they needed it, then that's okay. But then the second that I felt like they were taking advantage and they were doing things like drinking their alcohol and, feasting on their food, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't feel right. And obviously that's not, that particular moral perspective on it is not very moral, I don't think. But it was something that is a movie that made me think about that stuff. And I appreciate that in a movie.
So tell me, what did you think about the other maid and her husband and their relationship with the family?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk about this. I didn't write this down in my notes, and I came up with this organically.
All right.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
You remember the part, well, okay, so I didn't draw any conclusions, so you'll have to help me draw conclusions about this, but I noticed it. Remember the part, careful not to get too much in the light. Remember the part in the movie very early on where the rich mom, is showing Jessica, the one who tutors the little boy in art. No. Okay, I'm sorry. Back up. The part where the rich mom is showing the poor boy, the poor teenage guy, he's just come to the house for the first time, and she's showing him the painting that the little boy did. And he says, is it a chimpanzee? And the mom says, no, it's a self-portrait. It wasn't either. It was the guy. The ghost.
Oh my gosh. Do you think that's what it was?
Yes. It was never either one.
He does look like that dude too.
So what can you draw? What
looking.
conclusion can you draw? Because, and all the art stuff. I'm sure there's interesting things to be figured out there. Of, remember like the zone of schizophrenia in the bottom right?
Is that the
she
zone
was
of
thinking it was like this
schizophrenia, or was it the
alternate
zone of
personality.
something else?
It was like a schizo. Or I don't know. I'd have to. I thought it was
Schizophrenic
schizophrenia.
zone? You might be right.
Yeah, I thought
think
that's
you're right.
what it was. But isn't that interesting? Like, what do you think is the relevance of? It wasn't either. It was that guy that he saw in his house. So it wasn't.
Why do you think they pointed out that zone? Is that a reference to the doorway that he came from? That dark space? She says, "See this dark space right here." Or does she say something else? Did she say dark space? I don't remember.
I can't remember what she said. But if you guys know, if you have any theories.
Yeah, we want your
Comment.
thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Give us thoughts on that.
So yeah, that was an interesting thing. I'm making my way through the things that I had wanted to bring up. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I have. Everything that I thought about it.
feel like there's more to say, though. Is there more to say?
I think there probably is, but I think a lot of the stuff about this movie was very, very subtle. There were things that, again, you really, really would want to watch it twice, or...
That was all my notes. I look at my notes now. Looking at my notes now, I'm realizing I had nothing. Like,
I know.
I had no insights into this movie until talking about it today.
Yeah, and seriously, I really don't think there's any issue with doing some research around how has the movie been received, what did other people think of the movie, because then you still bring up the stuff that you thought of, but you can kind of credit other people for planting an idea in your head that you could then think of a little bit, take and run, because...
Yeah, that's true.
I think, again, I think if someone's interested in a movie, they want to know about a movie, they just want to have all the interesting things pointed out to them. They don't care whose idea it was originally. Maybe we do, because we're a little bit, our ego is involved in the creation of this, but nobody else cares. They just want to know what's interesting. What do you think?
Thinking about that guy in the basement who came out.
Oh,
and
yeah, because
killed
you'd
the
asked me
son.
what we thought about them.
He killed the son, and then he made a beeline for the daughter.
Killed the son. He tried to.
He tried to kill the son, and then he made a beeline for the daughter.
Yeah.
Dead air.
I don't mind a little dead air.
I don't mind dead air. I'm actually not bothered by it. I'm just joking.
Kind of just, those moments where you...
It's a thinking moment.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure there's so much to be realized about that. You know what I thought was really interesting? For as political as it was, you could really see that it's South Korean, because the whole Native American Indian, all the stuff with that, I don't see an American movie doing anything like that these days with cultural appropriation.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That is interesting.
I actually was kind of surprised at the un-PC way they talked about it. Which actually, speaking of that, I was I was surprised at the way they talked about Kim Jong-un too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was weird.
It was not a PC. It wasn't PC.
Well, it wasn't what Kim Jong-un would be happy to hear.
You don't think it was?
Yeah.
You don't think he would have been happy to hear
No,
that?
he probably would have been... Well, I don't know if Kim Jong-un would have been bothered.
They were
I don't know if it was
officially
really
making
un-PC,
fun
but
of
they were
talking
talking about
heads.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
They were not officially making fun of him. I don't know if they'd want to mess with that line.
The movie got really uncomfortable at that part where the man and his wife took over temporarily. I was genuinely kind of stressed out, like, what is going to happen? And there's so many moments where you think the rich family's about to figure out what's going on, and they never do. They literally go the entire movie without thinking anything is up, and they're just they totally have their noses turned up at everything. They're not suspicious of anyone. And I know I'm pretty sure I remember them talking in the movie about how money irons out all the creases.
Oh, yeah.
And it irons out your cynicism and your suspicion of people. Mm-hmm. And they really do just kind of live in blissful ignorance in that entire movie.
Yeah.
There's so many moments where you think this family's going to get caught, and there's so many close calls, but it's not really a close call because the rich family doesn't look over their shoulder like, what was that? They'd never kind of wonder, what was that sound? There's so many banging sounds towards the end of the movie in the basement, and there's never a shot of anyone in the family going, what was that? They just go the entire movie as if nothing happened. You could literally splice this film and just make it about some rich family, and you would never get a shot of the rich family being suspicious. It's just always the rich family doing their thing.
The rich mom was so willing to believe that there was some conspiracy against them in the family. So when the poor son was kind of picking off their original staff so that they could replace the original staff, the mom was so willing to be like, oh, they're doing this horrible thing is happening. She was very much willing to gossip about it, wanted to hear the scoop, willing to believe the worst, which is an interesting thing because, again, that would serve her entertainment, whereas she was not consistent with that behavior when it would have required actual sort of attention to something potentially bad happening right under their noses. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the part where during the storm, when it was such a horrible, traumatic experience for the people in the poor neighborhoods, but then for the rich people who literally lived high, they lived high up in the city. What?
Just me being the sound guy. This.
They literally lived.
I didn't think I care anymore.
The rich people lived high up in the city. To them, it was not this traumatic event. It was this beautiful, beautiful thing to be watched and marveled at. Once again, things serving their entertainment. Is that still going good? Is it supposed to be
going.
red?
We're good.
Okay, cool. So did you have any other final thoughts about this movie?
I keep thinking there's not really anything else to be said, and then you keep saying things that
I'm sure there's so much more, too.
There's so much more.
Like, there's more about the art.
I'm gonna catch more things.
There's for sure more about the art. There's more about the garden party. There's relevance there, but I don't know exactly what it is. There's relevance to when the rich mom was talking about how to set up the tables like a falcon or something, remember? She was like, set it up like wings. You remember that?
Yeah.
That's relevant.
What do you think the relevance is?
I don't know.
Something, though.
Something.
This really is one of those movies where you feel like the whole time everything that's being put in front of you, you're like, okay, there's a reason that's being done that way.
Every single thing was intentional. The shots were so clean and, never too much that they were giving you, never too little. It was just, the shots were beautiful. The music was beautiful. I will say this was not my, if I'm talking about a movie that I just enjoy because I enjoy it, this probably isn't it. But it was so well done. It was so well done.
You didn't enjoy the movie?
No, I enjoyed it. I mean, there's a lot of movies that we'll do on the podcast that I will enjoy and I recognize as a really good piece of art, really well done. And they kind of restore my faith in the art form. But that maybe aren't my personal taste for like watching and rewatching a lot.
I thought this was totally a rewatch movie. Yeah. This is like a movie I could watch for fun.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
As long as it doesn't have a bad American dub.
Oh,
I'll watch it.
Yeah, you'd have to watch very intently with the subtitles for this one.
Yeah.
This is not a put on in the background kind of movie.
Yeah. I just want to say, don't ever watch a dubbed version of a movie unless you're there for the jokes or it's a spaghetti western where you have no choice.
What's a spaghetti western?
We'll cut that part out so you don't feel so bad. Okay. Clint Eastwood, like Good, Bad, and the Ugly. They call them spaghetti western because they're filmed in Italy, but because everyone's supposed to be speaking English, the actors don't know how to speak good English, so they just have them talk. And there's so many parts where you look at the actors and they're speaking English, but their mouths are like they don't know what they're saying. It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
That's spaghetti western.
Because they're all Italian extras or something?
Yeah, they're all Italian actors and they don't know English.
Oh, that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
It's cool. We should watch spaghetti western.
Cool. Well, I feel good. So we have not talked, Micah, about how we want to do the outro. Or I guess we did. So if you feel like, I think that might be everything. I think that might be all we have to say about this movie.
I can do the outro.
I think it was a good first round. I'm excited about the rest of the podcast. Whenever you're ready.
Tell us what you thought about this movie, and leave a comment in the comment section. And if you want to see more of these videos, like it. And next time we watch this, we'll have beer. So buy a case for the next video.
See you next time.
All right, see you later.